Before Salem, the forgotten witch hunt that shocked the world long before the infamous Salem Witch Trials ignited the fears of colonial America, another even more horrifying event took place across the Atlantic, a massacre buried in silence, rarely spoken of, and nearly erased from history. This is the chilling story of the Torsåker Witch Trials of Sweden, the deadliest witch hunt in the country's history, where 71 people were executed in a single day. Torsåker was a small, snow-covered parish nestled among the quiet hills of 17th century Sweden. Life there was simple, devout, and governed by the rhythms of the church and the seasons. But in the winter of 1668, something began to stir. Whispers, fear, rumors that the devil had found his way into the hearts of the villagers. And as with most tales of mass hysteria, it all began with the children. Clergymen claimed that Satan was gathering followers and using witchcraft to lead souls astray. They believed children, pure and untarnished, could detect these witches. The church began to question children, asking them to name names, to describe who they had seen at the devil's Sabbath. Terrified and impressionable, many children began pointing fingers. The accused were often their own mothers, sisters, or neighbors. Leading the charge were two priests, Laurentius Christophori Horneus and another minister, who had been taught to believe that witchcraft was not only real, but a threat to the Christian soul. Under their supervision, over 100 villagers were accused. Torture was officially banned in Sweden at the time, but religious interrogation and psychological pressure served the same purpose. Once accused, there was no real path to freedom. Guilt was assumed. Innocence was impossible to prove. Arrests began in waves. Entire families were dragged from their homes under the cover of darkness. Mothers were taken from crying children. Elderly women who had once delivered babies or treated the sick with herbs were labeled as witches. The village became consumed by paranoia. No one knew who to trust. The list of accused grew longer by the day, and then came the order. In June 1675, after a long winter of accusations and interrogations, the day of execution arrived. A hill near the village had been selected. There, in a single grim spectacle, 71 people, 65 women and 6 men were beheaded and burned. No trial, no defense, no mercy. The victims were led to wooden blocks one by one. Among them were teenagers and grandmothers. Even the wife of a respected pastor. The executions were carried out with brutal efficiency. 10 headsmen stood ready as blindfolded villagers were forced to kneel. After the beheadings, the bodies were thrown onto pyres. The flames consumed their remains and the wind scattered the ashes of the innocent. The snow would return the next season, covering the hill and the horror beneath it. And then, silence. No one was punished for the massacre. The priests continued to serve in their churches. The state never intervened. Even those who had made the false accusations, the children, were left to carry the weight of guilt into adulthood. One surviving account includes a confession from a grown accuser who admitted in a letter that the children had been taught to lie. "We were told they were witches," the note read. "We believed them." The graveyard where the victims were buried was never properly marked. The hill itself was left to overgrow, as if silence could erase what had happened there. Unlike Salem, which became a symbol of caution and reflection, Torsåker faded into obscurity, too shameful, too horrifying to become legend. But the ghosts of Torsåker have not vanished. Historians who have dared to dig into the story describe it as a cultural trauma that Sweden never fully addressed. The location still exists, quiet and snow-covered for most of the year. Few visitors come. Fewer still know the full story. Before Salem, there was Torsåker, a dark reminder of what happens when fear replaces reason and suspicion becomes law. 71 lives lost in a single day. 71. And for what? A lie, a panic, a moment in history where the church, the community, and even the children became executioners. This forgotten witch hunt is not just a story about the past, it's a warning. Because when we allow fear to rule and facts to fade, when we let hysteria silence justice, we risk repeating the darkest parts of our history. Torsåker 1675, the witch hunt they never taught you about.